At 5 a.m., the world is silent. No noise, no distractions, no excuses. And in that silence, one man changed his entire life forever. He was poor, he was tired, he was ignored by everyone around him. But one decision, to wake up early every single day, turned him from a broken man into a successful one. This is the story of Thomas and the power of 5 a.m. Thomas was 32 years old. For most people, that would be the age of stability, a decent job, a little savings, a little peace. But Thomas had none of that. He worked as a night security guard in a small building on the edge of the city. Every night, he sat alone in the dark, watching the hours pass, watching other people live their lives, watching success happen for everyone else. And every morning, when his shift ended, he went home exhausted, broke, and hopeless. He wanted more from life, but he didn't know how to get it. Thomas lived in a tiny rented room with peeling paint, an old fan, and a window that barely closed properly. His clothes were old, his shoes were worn out, and his dreams, those had been buried so deep even he stopped talking about them. He had once dreamed of becoming an office worker. He had once dreamed of earning enough to help his mother. He had once dreamed of building a better future. But life kept hitting him harder and harder. Bills kept coming. Prices kept rising. And every month his salary disappeared before he could even breathe. He felt trapped, not just by poverty, but by routine. Sleep, work, eat, repeat. That was his life. And the worst part was this. He could see other people moving forward while he stayed in the same place. Some had better jobs, some had more confidence, some had better education. And Thomas kept asking himself the same painful question. Why does my life feel stuck? One evening, after a long night shift, Thomas returned home and found his mother sitting quietly in the corner of the room. She looked weak, tired, and far older than her years. Thomas rushed to her side and asked what happened. She had been working too hard again, stressed, exhausted, carrying the pain of a life they could barely afford. Then she looked at him and said something that pierced his heart. Thomas, you are a good son, but good intentions are not enough. You cannot keep living like this. Please, do something with your life. Those words stayed in his chest like fire. That night, Thomas could not sleep. For the first time in years, he realized something painful. No one was coming to save him. No miracle. No lucky break. No sudden rescue. If his life was going to change, he had to change it himself. A few days later, while working his night shift, Thomas met an older man named Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen was different. Calm, successful, well-dressed, but not arrogant. He came to the building every morning around the same time. Always focused, always disciplined, always moving with purpose. One day, Thomas gathered the courage to ask him, "Sir, how did you become so successful?" Mr. Chen smiled and said, "I did one thing differently from most people." Thomas leaned in. Mr. Chen continued, "I wake up at 5 a.m. Thomas almost laughed. That was it? That was the secret? Mr. Chen saw the doubt in his face and said, "Most people sleep through their best hours, but the first hours of the day are powerful. They belong to you. No messages, no calls, no distractions, just silence, focus, and growth." Thomas listened carefully. Then Mr. Chen added, "If you use those early hours every day, your life will not remain the same." That night, Thomas went home and stared at the ceiling. 5 a.m. It sounded impossible. He was already tired from work. He slept late after night shifts. He felt like he had no energy left. But deep inside, he knew this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. So he made a decision. For the next 90 days, he would wake up at 5 a.m. no matter what. No excuses, No negotiation. No quitting. The first morning was terrible. His alarm rang. His body begged for sleep. His mind screamed, "Just 5 more minutes." But Thomas stood up. He splashed cold water on his face, sat on his bed, and whispered to himself, "This is where my life changes." The first week was painful. Every morning felt like a battle. His body was heavy. His eyes were sore. His thoughts were slow. Some mornings he wanted to give up. Some mornings he wondered if this was all pointless. But he remembered his mother's words. He remembered Mr. Chen's advice. And most of all, he remembered the pain of staying the same. So Thomas kept going. Every day at 5 a.m., he sat down and learned something new. He used free YouTube videos to study accounting. He practiced Excel. He took notes in a small notebook. He watched tutorials again and again until he understood them. At first, it felt slow, but slowly, things began to change. Thomas divided his mornings into 2 parts, from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. He focused on skill building. No phone, no entertainment, no scrolling, just learning. He studied basic accounting, Excel formulas, office communication, money management, and how to become useful in the workplace. Then from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., he worked on his body and mind. He did simple exercises, push-ups, walking, stretching. Then he read a few pages of a book, or reviewed what he learned the day before, or wrote down the goals for the day. Slowly, this morning routine became sacred. And for the first time in years, Thomas felt in control. Not because life became easier, but because he became stronger. By the end of the first week, he was exhausted. By the second week, he was adjusting. By the third week, something amazing happened. 5 a.m. no longer felt impossible. It felt normal. His body started waking up before the alarm. His mind became sharper. His energy improved. His confidence began to grow. And something even bigger changed. People at work started noticing him. He was more alert, more disciplined, more reliable. He made fewer mistakes. He learned faster. His boss saw the difference. Thomas had changed from a tired man who only survived into a focused man who was ready to grow. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Thomas kept waking up at 5 a.m. While others were sleeping, he was building. While others were wasting time, he was learning. While others were making excuses, he was making progress. After 90 days, his life looked completely different. He passed his skill tests. He became confident with office software. He understood financial basics. He communicated better. He carried himself differently. And one day, his boss called him in. Thomas thought he had made a mistake. But instead, his boss said, "We need someone dependable in the office. You've proven yourself. We're promoting you." Thomas could hardly believe it. He moved from a night security job to a daytime office role, and his salary doubled. But the real victory was not the promotion. The real victory was who Thomas had become. He was no longer the man who gave up on himself, no longer the man who waited for luck, no longer the man who slept through his future. He had become disciplined, focused, confident, and unstoppable. He learned something life-changing. Success does not come from motivation alone. It comes from habits, from repetition, from doing the small things every single day, even when no one is watching. And for Thomas, the most powerful habit of all was waking up at 5 a.m. So when people ask what changed Thomas's life, it was not money. It was not a connection. It was not luck. It was one choice, one alarm clock, one quiet morning, one promise to himself that he would never stay the same again. And that is the power of 5 a.m. Because while the world sleeps, winners are being made. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm rings, will you go back to sleep, or will you rise? and build the life you deserve. Your future is waiting, and it starts at 5 a.m. The world rewards the people who are willing to wake up before it does.